What's going on there, guys? Good evening. It's the Earthmaster here on this Tuesday night, November 29th, almost December already, 2022. It is about 10:25 p.m. here along the West Coast in California. Getting in a little late update, but again, better late than never, I suppose, right? So what do we got going on out here? A whole lot of shaking being reported around everywhere. Seems like we got a whole bunch of earthquakes everywhere, so we're going to go ahead and check that out. Latest quake shows a 1.7. We know there's a lot of shaking going on out there in the Mauna area with the ongoing eruption there from the northeastern rift zone. We'll take a look at the maps here in just a little bit, but earthquake activity continuing there big time. Also, if you look up north into the Alberta region of Canada, what do we got up there? Some odd quakes, right? We don't normally see a whole lot of earthquake activity up here in the beautiful country of Alberta, the countryside of Alberta up there in Canada. We had a 5.3 earthquake today, and that ties the record there for the largest earthquake, at least in reported times up here. In Alberta. I did pull up real quick. I just want to show you guys real quick the map I pulled up just specifically here of the Alberta region. It does include a little bit of the BC region to the west, but looking at specifically this area, you can see up here today's 5.3, one of the largest earthquake being reported here for this region. We did have another 5.3 in the Dawson Creek, or north of the Dawson Creek area back in 2001. And I know there was a 5.4 somewhere around the BC region over here. But of course, these are fault systems over here. You got the Rocky Mountains, obviously there's going to be faults. But here in this area, the stable continental area, the North American craton, almost the middle of it, normally doesn't see earthquake activity at all. So what do we see today so far? Seen 6 earthquakes at least. Again, there's probably a little bit more happening than what's being reported up here. 5.3, the largest. Following that was a 4.9, and these are kind of foreshocks here. So let's go ahead and check out the region. I did get a couple notifications here in regards to the images that I see here on the satellite view here. This is not Texas. This is not Oklahoma. This is not anywhere in the States. This is in Alberta. And I didn't know. So this is kind of all new to me, but I appreciate all the comments and whatnot kind of confirming. This is basically the United States, Texas area, but the Canada version, Alberta. These are all oil and pumping operations out here, wastewater injection ponds as well, which I kind of was suspicious about it. There's some of the ponds out there when I seen these earthquakes, but I was like, no way. I don't think they have that up there in Canada, but they do. This is kind of like the lifeline up here in Alberta with massive amounts of fracking operations, oil pumping operations up here, and these earthquakes struck really close to some of them. The 5.3 right here struck within a line of them. These kind of look like they may be, they're cut out for some reason. I'm not for sure if those are some wastewater injection ponds or whatnot. I'm not 100% certain about the whole process of how they go about doing things up in Canada. But we know for certain that these earthquakes struck in a massive area where there's a tremendous amount of oil pumping operations, huge refineries and whatnot. So I'm really surprised we haven't really seen any earthquake activity due to all these operations. But you got to remember, it does take a little bit of time. It doesn't happen instantly. You just can't push out wastewater down there and expect an earthquake to pop off there in a week or two. Sometimes it takes years. So I'm not for certain how old these oil pumping operations are out here in the Alberta region. But man, It almost looks like Texas. It almost, aside from all the greenery out here, the green vegetation, Texas has greenery, but not like this. It almost looks like Texas, but it's not. Alberta, Canada region. Sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes, or not weeks, but months, sometimes years for earthquake activity to kick up like this. It really does. We've seen Texas obviously kicking up some 4s and even some 5s here recently in their oil pumping operation fields, their wastewater injection sites. So this will be a normal thing wherever this does take place. There's already been proof. There's already been charts and whatnot. I've shown them a million times here on this channel. The frequency of earthquakes in relation to the wastewater injection disposal wells, as far as like the number of them being produced, as far as the frequency goes in comparison to the earthquakes. And man, it just goes up and up. So there's a 100% relation to what's going on out here. So earthquakes are going to probably become more common. And also that also depends on how much pressure is built up out here against the North American Craton area. Obviously, the Rocky Mountains extending all the way up here. It took lots of pressure, right? Lots of time to produce these mountains. So strain out here along this area of Canada could be one of the reasons for this activity we're seeing here. Like I say, it's just very odd, but I do see a relation now, and I do appreciate all the comments there in regards to what's out here. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. It's a big deal for them up there. This is pretty much like Texas country. It's what keeps everything running. It's what keeps the economy going. But earthquakes are going to be very, very common here. And this may be just the beginning. Again, I'm really surprised we haven't seen anything further, but it just takes a little bit of time, and maybe that it, just under the right circumstances there, things decided to pop here a little bit. I don't think we're going to see anything bigger. There's not a fault system out here that would produce any major earthquakes there in the Alberta area. Further west, of course, as you go to the west coast and the Rocky Mountains area into the BC region, yes, obviously we got fault systems that can produce some larger quakes along the coast. But I honestly don't think we're going to see anything bigger. But that's big enough, right? 5.3. Got quite a few folks reported this earthquake earlier this evening, I should say. And some light to moderate and possibly even some strong shaking being reported from this 5.3. And the depth of this earthquake down there, and consistent with all the other earthquakes there, about 10 kilometers deep. So, it's one of those things. It's going to happen. Southern California has some of these as well. I remember seeing them when I went down to the Parkfield area to check out the San Andreas Fault. I remember seeing quite a few of those. So depending on, their relation to certain tectonic areas, and this is just well east of any major plate boundary and any major fault systems. But it just kind of shows you how pressurized the continents can become, and also the North American Craton here. It's a pretty huge feature. You can see it across the North American plate as you zoom out. It's up against the Rocky Mountains here eastward is where it's all pretty much flat. You don't have a whole lot of plate dynamics here, and it covers up a huge section here of the North American continent. Again, we've covered that quite a bit here on this channel, but expect more. How long this will go on is depending on how long, how much pressure is built up out here in this region. But it's definitely out there in the oil fields, which are not listed up here. Like if you go down to Texas over here, It should show, sometimes it does, but this is another area that's got quite a bit of older features here, a little deserty. I know once you get into eastern portions of Texas, there's a lot greener. I'm not a big fan of this area of Texas. Too dry for me. But man, there's thousands of these oil pumping operations out here and wastewater disposal wells, and they're within feet of them. And they have a lot of earthquakes. Texas here just had one of its bigger quakes recently, and that could be definitely an overall sign here along the North American plate of some incredible pressure. Let's go to... Oh yeah, I was going to check out the last 30 days here. All magnitudes. I'm going to show you guys just this area of Texas. There's certain other areas that see it as well. Largest magnitude of 5.4 in around the, it says the Minnetonka area, but this is just outside of the Pecos area. And those earthquakes, earthquake activity, well within some older fields. A lot of these have been erased and eroded off of the map of the. You can't really see too many of them; they disappear out here. But there's hundreds and thousands of these oil pumping operations out here in Texas. There's some of the wastewater ponds, and that's what it is. And these earthquakes will continue into the future. The older ones, I believe, first. And then, of course, we've got quite a few new ones out there as well. Also up here into portions of Oklahoma, they see the same thing. Although, there's a couple different fault systems up here around the Wichita Mountains and whatnot. But, man, yeah, it's kind of surprising to see that activity today up into the Alberta area. Got quite a response there from quite a few folks there, and I appreciate the comments and whatnot, the reported shaking. Pretty crazy and also pretty scary at the same time, because that's not really earthquake country, but I guess it is now to an extent. So we'll continue to watch and monitor this activity and see how it progresses. Let's just hope that there's not anything bigger. We'll watch it pretty closely, folks. But expect more. Definitely expect more up there. I'm not for certain how broad of an area, the oil fields extend out here, but there's a lot. All right, what else do we have? It's kind of a big story. It's kind of a big deal up there right now. We did see some activity ramping up north here, way up north, into the Northwest Territories of Canada, around the Prince Patrick Island area. 4.1 coming in earlier this afternoon, about 10 kilometers deep. Not a big earthquake, but a little overall sign of some North American pressure out here along that plate. Also, things been kicking up out here in the Atlantic northern area. Looks like north of the Charlie Gibbs fracture zone. Quite a few fives kicking up here. This area did see a pretty good swarm about 2 months back. It looks like that is starting to kick back up here today. A little bit of activity around the northern mid-Atlantic range. All right, let's check out the states here, see what we got. Some activity this morning up against the Appalachian Mountains. Overall sign of definitely quite a bit of activity around the North American Craton here. Kind of see a line of activity in the area. New Madrid zone looks fairly quiet except for one earthquake, a 1.5 early, actually 1 minute after midnight last night near the Lynn, Arkansas area. Oklahoma, one earthquake out there. And of course, Texas around our wastewater disposal wells. Got about 8 earthquakes here over the last 24 hours. Some 2s and 3s out there in the mix. Let's see what we got here for the Pacific Northwest. Not a whole lot, but kind of watching this little unusual swarm out here up against the Yakima Ridge, north of Yakima, getting a little bit of activity over the last 7 days or so. Well, actually, it looks like it's been only, I could have swore there was a little bit more. Looks like we got about 5 earthquakes here over the last 24 hours around this region, kind of kicking up. Just kind of watching that. That's the east side here of the Cascades. And Not for certain about fault systems, but I'm sure there is. Looks like there's a couple just south here of Yakima. Oregon looks pretty quiet. Got one explosion around Mount, what is that up there? Silverton, looks like. All right, Gorda Escarpment, 2.8. That one coming in, looks like earlier this afternoon time frame. Not a whole lot going on throughout Northern California aside from our Cobb Mountain area there in Clear Lake, volcanic fields, and some broad area of earthquake activity, but nothing major. Looking at the 2.5 map and above, doesn't really show too much activity across Southern California. This is all pretty much microquake activity. And no further movement down here off the San Andreas Fault. We were kind of watching this one right here. 2.3 coming in early this morning, right off the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. So get a little bit on the nervous side when I see some earthquakes out here, because what's it going to take? This thing's wound up tighter than a spring. And, you know, what's it going to take to trigger this thing? Could it be the 2.3? Well, not this time, apparently, but who knows? You know, we start getting some further activity out here. Definitely noteworthy to watch. Up into the Alaska area. Looks like typical movement throughout the area for now. A little swarming around the Trident Volcano once again. Looks like a couple twos coming in within the last hour. No major swarming, but it's been an off and on thing there for a couple months. Into the Japan area. A couple of the latest earthquakes there just off the coast of Japan. And into the southern end of the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. All showing a little bit of heightened activity today. Into the... looks like the northwestern segment here of the Filipino plate. 5.0 coming in early this morning. So things starting to maybe look like they're picking up here just a little bit into that area of the plates. Down here into the Tonga area and the Fiji area. Things kind of kicking up once again. Seen a super deep 5.0. Almost 600 kilometers deep here into the region just south of Fiji. The latest one shows a 4.8 down here in our watch zone. Kind of watching this area pretty closely. It's gonna catch up. Just around the Kermadec Islands area, about 10 kilometers deep. New Zealand area. Let me check out the model here and see what we got for New Zealand. Looks like a 3.8 North Island, New Zealand area. This region, I think we need to watch and pay close attention to pretty closely because of all the movement around the Pacific Plate. This sits right there on the Pacific Plate, and we've seen some massive movement with 7s and 6s up north here with hardly anything across the New Zealand area. A couple 2s and 3s and maybe a 4 or so. But I think we got to watch this area pretty closely. Not giving out a warning, but it's definitely noteworthy to, you know, kind of wonder what's going on here. You know, it's going to catch up eventually. Let's see what we got. Northern Java Trench, a 4.7 coming in early this morning, about 6 o'clock. A little bit of activity, it looks like, outside of Turkey. And the Athens, Greece area. A couple earthquakes early this morning and afternoon time frame. Around the Caribbean plate, a couple earthquakes there. Northeastern of San Juan area. Getting a little bit of earthquake activity up here around the Puerto Rico Trench and north of the British Virgin Islands area. Middle America Trench showing some heightened activity as well overnight. A couple 4s kicking off there off the coast of El Salvador and the Guatemala region. A look at the earthquake 3D globe here. Doesn't show too much activity. It looks like most of those quakes there have been reported by the USGS. No major significant swarm. Into the South America region, looks like some 2s and 3s and a couple 4s in there into the Peru-Chile Trench. A 5.2 on the Pacific and the Antarctica plate boundary. That one fairly new earthquake that is listed down here. It's a divergent boundary kicking up just earlier this evening. Of not a big earthquake, but definitely a lot of movement. It seems like since Mauna Loa has kicked off here, things are definitely on the move throughout the Pacific Plate. So what have we got here at the Mauna Loa area? Things are continuing Obviously, we're still looking at the eruption stage of the Mauna Loa volcano, confined mostly to the confined to the northeastern rift zone. I did pull up the map here. I forgot to mention this. There was an article I found about the earthquake activity up there in Canada, and this is all about wastewater injection up there in Canada. I'm going to leave this for a link for you guys to read and check out. It's really cool and worth reading. This article here from cbc.ca in regards to this article got put out a year ago, but it does talk about the wastewater injection sites and whatnot. So check that out. Here is the latest map here on Mauna Loa. It's the eruption map showing the stages and the front flow. Looks like 12 p.m. This was updated here. The general direction of the flow of lava. And if you're familiar with this area, there's obviously Mauna Loa, a couple different fractures, or fissures, I should say, and a couple different flows going on. But this is the furthest front flow. I'm sure it's a little bit more advanced now on the west side here of the Observatory Road. Scooting up closer down here, this is the elevation, so this thing's going to flow down, 7,000 foot line right about here. It's probably there right about now. But here's the fissures, the active fissures, the caldera. These are the current ones right now. We haven't really seen any further new ones open up. Just these active fissure zones that are, obviously spewing out quite a bit of lava and headed downhill. The latest, let me bring up the latest information here, bring the right map up, on the Mauna Loa activity. Update. This was definitely updated here about 4:23 Hawaii time. Looks like the northeast rift zone eruption of Mauna Loa continues, with several fissures and lava flows active. Several lava flows are traveling in a northeast direction. The longest and largest lava flow is issuing from Fissure 3. This lava flow crossed the Mauna Loa Weather Observatory Road about 8 o'clock yesterday. The front flow was located approximately 4.5 miles from Saddle Road. That was approximately at about 3:30 p.m. For straight line distance. Fountains at Fissure 3 were consistently 40 to 50 meters tall. Whoa. And that's 131 to 164 feet tall. That's crazy. And fountains at Fissure 4, which formed at approximately, looks like 7:30 p.m. on November 28th, were 5 to 10. So a little bit smaller, but still pretty impressive. There is no active lava within the caldera region, and there is currently no lava erupting from the southwest rift zone. We do not expect any eruptive activity outside the northeast rift zone. Currently, there is no property at risk. There is a visible gas plume from the erupting fissure fountains and lava flows, with the plume primarily being blown to the north. The sulfur dioxide SO2 emission rates of approximately a lot. And there's a couple different maps that you can check out in regards to the VOG that's being produced out there. Definitely worth reading into. Here's the northeast rift zone. That's kind of cool. I didn't know they had this M5 cam Mauna Loa Fissure 3 eruption. Looks like they just set this thing up, so I'm going to add this onto the live stream. There's a couple different ones. The one I'm currently running is a view from Mauna Kea right here. That's the northeast rift zone, but a view from Mauna Kea looking at the northeast rift zone. And it's pretty cool, but man, not impressive as these new cameras that they got put up. That is pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out. That's pretty impressive. I hear there's quite a few folks wanting to check that out and heading over there to check it out. I would love to, but man, I got a couple commitments here that are keeping me grounded for now. But that's pretty awesome. All right. So again, who knows how long this is going to continue? It's been since about 1984 or so since that's erupted. I think it will continue probably for a little while. See what else we have out here, folks. Yellowstone National Park, super volcano up there in Wyoming. So check this out. I show you guys this activity. This is not Yellowstone erupting. This is the earthquake activity up north into Canada, into Alberta area. Now I know the distance here from Wyoming up there to those earthquakes are considerable. But it just kind of goes to show you how these earthquakes can kind of make itself known. I did see a couple comments that this was maybe bigger than a 5.3. And possibly I may have to agree with that looking at this signature. But can't be for certain because, well, I'm not in charge of the USGS or Earthquakes Canada, so I have to go with what they're saying. But those signatures there look a little bit bigger than a 5.3. Quite bigger. And you can see a couple of those 4s in there as well. But this doesn't appear to have messed with anything as far as Yellowstone goes. There's no localized earthquakes. But man, did it show up across the park very nicely. Even down into portions here of Idaho. All right, let's see. Let me check out the tremor map tonight. Cascadia tremor here. Nothing. Zip zero. No tremor at all going on across the area. Let's check out the Mount Rainier seismograph station here and see if we can pick up any earthquakes. I wouldn't doubt it, though, if we see those Alberta earthquakes listed up here as well, as far as the signature of them. Possibly. Earthquake activity pretty well localized here. Some very small microquakes. Oh, it's not going to let me see that one, huh? All right, let me go back here and see if I can find a different one. Because I wanted to see if the those earthquakes from Alberta were reaching here as far as the signature goes. Stand by for just a second. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but kind of curious. That may be one right here, but I'm not for sure why they're not showing the previous UTC time, but okay. Moving on, G1 storm in the forecast, and that is from a coronal hole that's been facing us, now currently situated further west here on the sun, but we had quite a bit of some charged particles flowing our way. And that is expected to arrive here, it looks like, on a little bit sooner than expected. November 30th time frame and December 1st as well. 60% chance of the auroras at the higher latitudes, 25% chance for the mid-latitudes. So that will be interesting to see how that peaks out. Aside from that, the solar flare activity is diminishing. Well, it hasn't really been active at all. Just had these couple sunspots, which are very minimal at best. There is a new region down here south. Doesn't look like it's going to be harboring anything major as far as flares go, but it is listed up here. Not named yet, but it should be named 3153 once it gets its title. All right, folks, I'm going to jump off here, and I am going to switch up that live view of Mauna Loa volcano to the Fissure 3, which shows the active lava fountains and whatnot. I'll take care of that here and list it up on the live stream ASAP. What do we got down here? 2.7 in Australia. Man, just overall, a lot of odd activity kicking up recently. Alrighty, guys, I'm off here. Pretty tired, so I'll chat you guys sometime tomorrow. Have a good one. Peace out.